Hey everybody, how's it going? This is another how-to video. In this video, we're gonna be interviewing one of my top guns in my office. His name is Mark Velasquez, and he's out here crushing the game. He's gonna tell you how he made $50,000 in 5 days. I think you're gonna love this video. Stay tuned. Hi Mark, how you doing today?
Hi, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, buddy. Hey, today I wanted to take a few minutes here with you to basically just go over one of the deals that you just recently brought into the office that I heard you did a tremendous job for the seller and actually ended up working really, really well for all the parties involved in it. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to maybe ask you a couple questions of how you actually structured it so that some of the viewers out there can maybe get a little bit more information on how they may be able to structure some of their own deals. Okay. First, if you just want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've done, your experience and that sort of thing, so that we can all know a little bit more about you.
Perfect. Well, first of all, my name is Mark Velasquez. I've been in real estate for about 8 years now. Started off in Las Vegas, Nevada. Been doing California for about roughly 4 years and now moved out here. So now as of 2017, I'm officially in California to be able to make it a little easier with the homeowners.
Fantastic. That's great. So, just a little bit of a couple questions here that we want to find out for you. In California, what are you finding out here in comparison to what you're finding in Nevada in regards to properties that are in distress? Are you seeing more properties out here? Are you seeing more properties in Nevada? Are you seeing properties maybe that are going to auction out here that may be a good opportunities for investors to pick up? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, definitely. In both California and Nevada, there are properties going into auction. It's slowed down a lot, since I first started, but there are still a lot of properties, especially with HOA auctions. They are foreclosing on properties. But in California in particular, a lot of properties that go to auction don't get postponed anymore. So for example, this particular deal that we were talking about, it was about 24 hours before the auction that we actually saved it, and it took a huge amount of work, as opposed to years ago when it was very easy to postpone foreclosures.
Wow. So now, just so that we can know exactly how this deal was structured, so basically what you did is you talked to a seller. How did you find the seller?
We actually do a marketing campaign here, and we called him up, and at that point he was basically telling us that the property was in foreclosure. It was gonna get sold tomorrow or the next day at auction. So we kind of talked to him a little bit about what his problem was, why he fell behind, just kind of get to know him a little bit. At that point, we did not know for a fact that it was going to foreclosure tomorrow. We just took his word for it. So once we did our research, we saw that it was going to foreclosure to the next day. So that's when we jumped on top of it immediately.
The foreclosure was being done by the homeowners association?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And in regards to the homeowners association, how much was he delinquent on the HOA?
At that point, it was $15,000.
$15,000. So he had made a payment on the HOA for quite some time. Now, what about the mortgage? Is he also delinquent on the mortgage?
He was delinquent, but it had not been in foreclosure yet. He was about 10 months behind.
Gotcha. So when you went in, you talked to him about the HOA. He was clearly interested.
Right.
And now you said he had a foreclosure sale day coming up within, was it a couple of days or?
The very next day, within 24 hours.
Wow. So you were pressed for time. So you didn't have a lot of time.
No, not at all.
Wow. So can you maybe show us or tell us a little bit about how you actually were able to convince the homeowners association to give you a little bit of time? What did you actually do that the homeowner association actually allowed you to postpone it? So walk me through the process.
Well, basically, as soon as we got off the phone with him, we called the HOA and tried to get a hold of their trustee, which is the attorney doing the actual foreclosure. Once we got a hold of her, the lady, her name was Susan, I'm never going to forget that. Mm-hmm. She basically told us there's nothing that can be done. He was way too delinquent on there. It was going to go into foreclosure at 10 a.m. the very next day. So at that point, it was kind of a done deal. So what we did is we actually wrote them up an offer, got a buyer immediately, wrote up an offer, sent it to them so they could postpone it. Just that way it gives us more time to be able to close the transaction. And they were able to do so. So we got it postponed. The HOA gave us like another 20 22 days or something like that to be able to get it done. And then at that point, we were able to market the property to be able to get another traditional buyer to come in.
Okay, fantastic. So you talked to the HOA, you told them that you were going to be selling the property, you requested a postponement, they told you no, 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 and then after a while you were able to build a relationship or build rapport with Susan from the HOA, and basically you were able to convince her to give you a little bit more time in the house so that you could actually sell it. Now that's fantastic. Now, where was the seller? Where was he? What was he saying throughout the process?
Well, he was really, really surprised. I mean, at the time he was ready to move out. You know, when we spoke with him, he was done. He was packing all his stuff. A matter of fact, when we went afterwards, there were just boxes, and he was ready to go. So he was very surprised. You know, he actually had hip replacement surgery about a week after, so he didn't have to actually do all that moving, so he was able to relax and, you know, get some more time with his family and whatnot.
To help him move out.
Yeah.
And, you know, he wasn't so pressured. Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the seller was very happy about that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's great. So then you had him sign a contract with you to be able to find him a buyer.
Correct.
All right. So you took the listing, and then after the listing, you had obviously already postponed the foreclosure from the HOA. And then what did you do after he signed the listing agreement with you?
After we signed the listing agreement, then we immediately took, you know, photos, started marketing the property, and talked to him. You know, see exactly what he wanted to get out of the deal. Because at that point, you know, he wasn't going to get anything. He was just going to walk away, and it would have been done. So we spoke with him, and, you know, we obviously came to an agreement of what he wanted out of it, and we were able to meet that. And, you know, we were able to get a buyer to meet whatever he wanted, and also to cover all closing costs and everything else for the whole transaction.
Wow, so you negotiated with the seller, and you guys came to a number that he was comfortable with. Clearly, he knew that his back was against the wall because he had limited amount of time. So what kind of buyer did you find for him?
We actually found a conventional buyer, you know, that was going to get a loan, that was going to actually live in the property. They went to go look at the property, they loved it, and, you know, just somebody who wanted to actually live there.
Okay, great. So now, tell us how you were able to structure the deal that basically put you in a position where you were able to make $50,000 in literally 5 days. How did you go from getting the contract with the seller to getting a retail buyer or an end buyer? What was the in between? How did you margin? How were you able to build a $50,000 margin into this deal?
So basically what happened was that we got the payouts for the mortgage and the payouts for the HOA. They equaled a certain amount of money. So my job was to be able to pay all that off and still give him the amount of money he wanted. So what I did was I marketed the property, and I got an end buyer for somebody who basically is going to purchase the property after we invest all this money into it. Because first and foremost, before anything, we had to pay off HOAs, we had to give him his money for relocation, pay off the mortgage, all that kind of stuff. So all that is just investment we're dumping into this. So my job was to find an end buyer to come in and purchase the property so that way we can make a profit as well.
Okay.
And that profit was the 50 grand.
Okay, so now take me back to when you signed the contract. How much did you have the seller sign a contract with you for?
The seller? The listing agreement? $350.
$350. Okay, great. Then the number to the seller, so the proceeds that you needed to pay off, or the amount of money that you needed to pay off against his house, was how much?
All in, it was about $285.
Okay, so $285. So now, from the $350, you were actually able to pay off the $285,000 that he owed. You were able to give him his relocation money, right? And you were able to get the foreclosure postponed, and you were also able to pay off the HOA.
Correct.
All right. So after the mortgages were paid off, the delinquent property taxes, the delinquent HOA, you gave him his relocation money. How much was the profit for the company? How much did they make on it?
$50,000.
$50,000 right on the nose?
Yep.
Wow, that is amazing. And how long did it take you to put that deal together?
From start to finish, literally probably just less than a week.
Less than a week. Wow. And what is the homeowner saying now about this transaction now that he's got the time to stay in there,
Oh, he's
pack his
excited.
stuff, and be able to move out?
He was excited, very excited. Well, when we get on the phone with him, I mean, he was just very stressed out, and now you see him, and he's the happiest guy in the world.
That's great. As far as the property itself, do you have an end buyer already?
Yep.
And they're in contract, they're ready to go?
Yep.
So just to kind of go back to the beginning, you took a client who was in foreclosure, literally 24 hours away
Yep.
from getting foreclosed on. You talked to the client over the telephone. You got the paperwork signed in order to be able to start working on it. The very next morning, you were able to convince the homeowners association to not foreclose on the property and actually allow you a little bit of time to pay them off. And in fact, you were able to do that, right?
Yep.
Then the next thing that you did is you were able to turn around and market the property at a higher price because you already had an investor that was going to pay off the HOA, pay off the mortgage, give him his relocation money. And in that time frame, it was under a week, you were able to basically build a $50,000 margin.
Correct.
That's amazing. Great job. What else can you tell new investors out there that might be wanting to break into, these deals where you can purchase a deed for X amount number of dollars and then turn around and sell it to another investor for a margin? What would you say is the most important things to keep in mind? Is it foreclosures? Is it the trustee sales? Is it the liens? Is it the seller? What would you recommend that a new investor out there looking to get into these kinds of deals do first?
Well, I definitely would say to check the title report. Make sure that there are no other liens on the property. Make sure you know what you're getting into. There's been a lot of situations, especially with new investors who go to HOA foreclosures, buy a $10,000 lien, but they don't realize they have to pay the mortgage. You know what I mean? So when you first break into this business, you just have to have all your T's crossed and I's dotted, because if you don't, then you could make a huge, like $100,000 mistake and not even know about it. But just check the title. Make sure it's clean. Make sure you know what you're buying. Make sure you know how to market these properties, because if you buy a property, you have to make sure you have an end buyer. You want to get out of it quick. You want to make sure you buy the properties, sell it, and then move on to the next one. Don't buy a property where there's just the title's a mess, and then you're sitting there for months trying to clean it up.
Right. So one of the first things that we need to be looking at as new investors is learning how to read title reports. Yeah. Okay, because that's going to tell you what needs to be paid.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And number two, what would you say is maybe the second most important thing after reviewing the title and knowing that, there is a deal here, there's not that much liens, there's not that many liens against the property. Mm-hmm. What would you say the second most important thing is after that?
Second most important thing would probably be talk to the seller. Talk to the homeowner. Get to know the homeowner, see where they stand, and make sure that they understand what they're going to be going through. Make sure they understand the process, and make sure that they're going to stick by your side throughout the whole transaction. It's not, the money's great. When we make money, this is why we're in business. But when you actually help somebody to be able to walk away with a certain amount of money, as opposed to just losing the property, I mean, that's a great feeling, Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course we make a ton of money in this business, but when you actually help somebody to be able to, do something that they didn't think they were going to be able to do anymore, it's a great feeling.
So you have to become a problem solver.
Oh yeah, you're the therapist, you're the everything.
Sure, absolutely. That's great. So number one, read the title report. Number two, make sure that you have a motivated seller who can understand the process, what you're trying to do, and is going to be committed to selling the property.
Yep.
And number three, what would you say maybe the third most important thing for you would be after you've checked the title, you've talked to a realistic seller who's highly motivated, what would be the third thing that you would say, is important for investors to look for?
Probably, I mean, there's never a shortage of things to look for, when it comes to buying properties and auctions, stuff like that. But I think probably another thing would be just to stay on top of your deal. Don't let it fall apart. Don't let it just sit there. Make sure that just as much as the seller is going to push you to get their money from you, you have to stay on top of them as well. If they need to leave the property or keep it clean or whatever the case may be, you do have to stay on top of them just as much as they're going to stay on top of you, because they're going to be calling you. They're going to want their money. They're going to want everything, which is good. But they also have responsibilities, which you also have to push them to do.
So a good communication, being able to have direct communication with their clients at all times, so that there's no miscommunication,
yeah.
misunderstandings.
Yeah.
They know where you're at. They know what's going on with their deal. You're, being transparent with them, so that it's a commitment on both sides. So great communication. That's excellent. That's great. You know what, Mark? Honestly, congratulations on your new deal.
Thank you.
I think, just hearing you talk about how you structured these deals and you made $50,000 in 5 days, it is possible. Clearly, that file that's right in front of you is the one that you're actually working on. So congratulations on putting such a great deal together. And thank you very much for sharing some of your knowledge and your experience with the rest of the world out there.
No problem. Thank you.